Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I am Tex, and today we're going to do a Hunter tier list for the end of season 25 slash beginning of season 26. And so I'm going to just explain the tiers real quick before we get into the video. So the order that I put these is risky win. This means that the Hunter can sometimes win, and they will and then they'll also tie, but they can also really push for wins, but they are a risk. These hunters are very hard, and they have quite a few counters, but they can still push for those wins. Tie City basically means that this hunter ties a lot, not much else. They don't really win a lot, but they also don't really lose a lot. They're very, very stable. Unstable win is basically they will win sometimes, but they will also lose more. They'll also lose quite a bit, and they're just not as good as the risky win, so they're unstable. They will sometimes tie, but they'll win. But they'll win depending on a lot of factors, and they will lose a lot too. Unstable tie means that they aren't particularly good hunters who just will who can really just push for ties most of the time in rank, but then in tournament really can't are really risky and really can't perform most of the time unless they're in just the right hands. Unstable means that the hunter is bad. I am sorry, there are just a few hunters in this game where for one reason or another, we'll get into it, just can't really perform outside our rank. You can rank with any hunter you want to, but these hunters you really shouldn't be bringing to tournament just about ever, unless you really want to flex for some reason and be like, oh yeah, I brought Hellember into Koa. Let's go. Yeah, Hellember's the first hunter, and he's also the worst hunter. He's the hunter you start with, and so NetEase purposely makes him bad. His puppets and his flame guy are good at camping, and he can do shit with them. But he doesn't have any of that until his first presence, which he doesn't ever get because he has no chase. And so you're just kind of stuck hoping that you can bring Insolence and Blink, and sometimes you can get someone down in enough time to stuff someone to where it wouldn't matter. But he just kind of sucks because that almost never happens against good survivors because he doesn't have anything. Even at first presence, you only have one doll. Two dolls is pretty good, but one doll you just kind of sometimes find useful. It's kind of sad that he sucks so much, but he just does, and there isn't really too much you can do about it. Next up is Clown. Clown's a bit better. I'm gonna put him in the unstable win. He can eke out a win sometimes. He isn't used that much because he's too hard for what he brings to the table, but I mean, you can sometimes get some work in with Clown. I won't lie. Clown mains scare me. Uh, in rank especially, they will just fucking body you with like 90% win rates or some shit. It's insane what a good Clown player can do on the right map against the right team comp. Uh, he has his dash, and basically you just vault shit to counter it. But really good clowns can mind game you. They can purposely chase survivors that are out in the open. You know, like, he's hard to use. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend him, but if you wanted to use him, there's really nothing stopping you. Next up is Gamekeeper. Gamekeeper's in a bit of an unstable tie. Oops. Put you over there. Alright. Gamekeeper, his hook is good. He just has nothing else. I mean, his traps are just kind of meh, because he has to place them down, and it's very obvious when he's placing down a trap, so you just move somewhere else. And, I mean, sure, he can do like a little trick where like, oh, I set a trap, and then I get the rescue before they get to the chair. Oh no. but that's kind of hard to do, and it's unstable. So he's in the unstable tie. Get it? And so then next up is Ripper. Ripper is okay sometimes. Um, his invisibility can be hard to kite. I personally see this fucker a lot in rank because randoms don't know how to kite him. Um, and the only problem is that if you miss a Foggy Blade, you lose. I mean, you can still tie if you miss your first Foggy Blade, but if you miss two, you absolutely lose. There's no question. Ripper, his cooldowns are just too long, and he doesn't have anything else to really work with until he gets full presence. So, if you really gotta hit those first two Foggy Blades, or else it just sucks to suck, I guess. Next up is Soul Weaver. Soul Weaver is really good in the current meta. Let me go ahead and just this up a bit. There we go. So Soul Weaver is pretty good. She isn't necessarily like the best hunter in the game, but if you get but the thing is that she can come back from being rotated and having a bad early game. She can very stably tie with her webs. Because if, like, let's say she gets rotated and just doesn't have a chance to use them, then all of a sudden you have 150, 200 webs. And so you're going to be able to down someone in like 10 seconds. And it's like it didn't even matter. And so that's why Soul Weaver is pretty consistent. She's also really good on a couple maps like Chinatown. She's one of the few stable hunters on Hospital too, which is really nice. And so yeah, Soul Weaver, pretty good. Next up is Geisha. Geisha has really strong chase, and that's about it. That's what you'll find in a lot of these Thai City hunters, is that they have really strong chase, so they can get really early downs. It's just that there isn't really anything they can use to capitalize on those early downs, other than have like maybe one or two tricks up their sleeve. Like Geisha can do that whole drop down hit thing that'll work like 10% of the time and get you a win. Otherwise, she just kind of ties, and that's about it. She is pretty good though. If you want to use her, you can find a whole lot of success with her, especially since randoms don't know how to kite her either. I mean, I guess they don't really know how to kite in general, but they especially don't know how to kite Ripper or Geisha for some reason. And so yeah, next up is Wu Chain. Wu Chain kind of sucks in this meta, gonna be honest. I really like Wu Chain. I love playing him. He's just so bad, and it's really sad to see this. He really relies on getting Blink to get first presence and then downing with his first presence. But by then, you're at like, what, like, that's an 80-second kite? So, like, 3 ciphers pop, and you'll sometimes tie, and you'll sometimes lose off of that. And not really much else. You'll win if the survivors kind of suck, but if they're good survivors with good communication, good luck. He is getting buffed though, but we'll have to see if that really helps him or not. Next up is Photo. Photo is very luck dependent. When his luck is in the right place, the Photo will 4K. Otherwise, he gets Warmand, and there's not very much in between. The main problem is that whether or not you find someone in the Photo world, whether or not you find them after you chair them in the Photo world, that's really all luck and guesswork. I mean, Photo can say, this is obviously 100% my Galaxy Brain 3D chess, Naruto, whatever. And sure, maybe, but that isn't going to work all the time. And so you just kind of stuck in a place where, sure, his Cypher Rush is technically better, but it doesn't help because he doesn't have any chase unless he gets that little card trick at full presence, which even then is only kind of okay at chase. So he just kind of stuck, and I don't see him really moving much either. Next up is Mad Eyes. Mad Eyes is the hardest hunter to win in the game, but when used right is really, really good. We see in Call of the Abyss, Mad Eye's got a 4K. Mad Eye's whole shtick at this point, basically, is that no one knows how to kite him. And so if you know how to use him, He can be used really effectively if you get the right bans, like you ban Priestess and Seer, whatever. And so that's kind of where Mad Eyes is. It's really goofy to see him getting 4Ks in Koa. And I mean, you can learn him, but why would you do it? Why would you put yourself through the 500 hours it'll take to get good with him? It You can't do it. I just it just doesn't make any sense of why you would. Next up is Feaster. Feaster used to be really good, but then he got nerfed a lot, and so now he's just kind of stuck in unstable tie because his abilities don't really let him get much further than that. His hitboxes were nerfed, and so now it's really hard to chase, and then they also nerfed his tentacles, and so, like, what do you... His chase just isn't good anymore. It's not. So, like, if you get survivors who aren't expecting a Feaster, or they don't know how to kite a Feaster, you'll do pretty good. Otherwise, he's gonna lose horribly. Next up is Dream Witch. Dream Witch is a risky wind hunter. We see her get played quite a bit in Koa. And there's many different strategies for Dream Witch. In general, there's two schools of thought for Dream Witch. One is the Patroller Dream Witch, which is definitely in the risky win category and can be very hard to use, but when used right, will just body the survivors most of the time. There's also the Insolence Detention Dream Witch, which is a lot more stable, but it will get you more ties than wins. That's what DX does, for example. So she's just kind of stuck in this area where, sure, she's good. She can get work done. It's just really hard, and it's really... It's more stable than the unstable win. But Tai City has very stable ties and will almost always get ties. Next up is Axeboy. As y'all probably know, Axeboy's my main. I love the guy. I got S badge with him. I have probably over 1,000 hours with this kid at this point. He's just kind of stuck and unstable though because he's luck based. It's true. We have what's the right word? It depends on where your if your trees and spot and souls are in the right place at the right time, you'll win. Otherwise, you lose. And because of that, it can be kind of luck based. Sure, you can. Axeboy takes skill. Don't get me wrong. Axeboy takes a lot of skill. It's just that his toolkit just happens that sometimes he's gonna get fucked over. It doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes he's just gonna get fucked over by souls and tree spawns, and there's not really much you can do about it. So he's just kind of stuck in unstable win. Next up is Lucino. Lucino, I love Lucino. I love playing Lucino. He just doesn't have good early chase. His camping is pretty good, and his chase is pretty good once he gets presence. But he has very little map pressure other than just kind of hopping to a cipher, putting a peeper down, and then hopping back. And so he's just kind of okay. You see Japan use him a lot. But otherwise, he's just kind of okay. You can use him, and you can find a lot of success with him, but he's definitely not the best hunter out there. Next up is Bloody Queen. Bloody Queen's a definition of a Tie City hunter. She gets a lot of ties and nothing else. To get a win as Bloody Queen, you basically need to land every mirror, and you need to hit survivors off of ciphers after you chair, which is really, really hard to do, and doesn't really happen that often even for the best hunters. But if you land most of your mirrors, you're gonna tie no matter what, because it can be almost impossible to kite a Bloody Queen with mirrors. It's really hard. It might be one of the best chase abilities in the game, but it just has such a long cooldown, and so once you do kite out a mirror, that's like that's like 30 seconds immediately. And what is the Bloody Queen gonna do at that point? She's gonna get a tie, and that's all she really can do. Next up is Bonbon. Bonbon's a really stable tie hunter, mostly because his win condition requires the survivors fucking up. His win condition is stuffing the rescuer, which is really easy to do as Bonbon because he has the best camp in the game. The problem is that they just aren't going to rescue a Bonbon. At least good survivors won't. They'll just sell the first chair most of the time unless they really need that win. And then they will have 3 ciphers popped at that point, and for the next chase, they're going to be able to kite long enough to get the cipher popped, you down them, and then that's it, that's a tie. And so he's very stable, and he's quite good, but he's just kind of stuck where he is because of how his counterplay is really easy. You counterplay by not playing against him. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that, right? It takes no skill to sacrifice the first chair. It doesn't. So next up is Disciple. Disciple's probably the worst of the Tie City Hunters. Anne's very easy to use. I mean, obviously it takes skill to use her, but she takes the least amount of skill of the Tie City Hunters, but she also has basically no win condition, other than sometimes she'll be able to delay the rescue until after half, and if she gets a quick enough second chase after downing the after half survivor, she'll win sometimes. That's about it. That doesn't happen very often, so she's just kind of stuck in Tie City, where she'll get a whole lot of ties because her cats are pretty good, and so are her jumps. But that's it. Not much else to say about her. She's a very simple hunter. This game is good to have some simple hunters, though. If you main Anne, more power to you. I'm happy for you. Next up is Violinist. Violinist used to be really good, but now he's entirely luck dependent. Basically, what happens with Violinist is that you have your notes, right? And if you're able to catch the survivor going to the right to dodge the note, then you'll be able to get a tie, and very rarely, if you're able to stuff from that, you'll get a win. Otherwise, if you don't stuff or they dodge to the left the first couple notes, then you'll get a tie or a loss. And you don't really have control over that as Violinist. And so that's why you're just kind of stuck and unstable. There isn't really much else other to say than sometimes you'll win, a lot of times you'll lose, and sometimes you'll just tie. Next up is Sculptor. Sculptor used to be really good, but then she got nerfed to the point where now she's just an unstable win because her hitboxes kind of suck, and also her map control is good, but not good enough to be a risky win. And so that's why she's just kind of stuck here. You can use her, and she's good. She just isn't the best. So that's why she's stuck in unstable win. Percy kind of sucks. Like, really sucks. He doesn't suck as much as Hellember, but he does suck. His chase is pretty good. The problem is that once you open the gate, Percy is useless. There's nothing he can do on an open gate. Sure, he can move dungeon, but it takes like 10 million years, and they can jump out of the dungeon while you're moving it. So if you don't get, and then also they just, because the survivor just self heals, he gets Cypher Rush worse than any other hunter in this game. And so that's why he's very just unstable. You can rank with him, and you can even win with him in rank. But he's too unstable for tournament, and you're not going to win a lot with him in rank. You'll just win with him some of the time in rank. Nightmare is the last of the unstable hunters. He's a noob killer because if you're new to the game and you don't know how to tight kite, Nightmare is really good. But once you know how to properly utilize pallets and how to tight kite on walls and stuff, then Nightmare can't do anything. He really can't. Like, what is a Nightmare supposed to do against a survivor tight kiting with high walls and pallets and shit? He can't do anything. And so that's why he's just stuck in unstable. And by the way, there are people who play these hunters in like the top of China and win all the time. I'm not saying that you can't do it. It's just very hard. It takes a lot of time to get to that level, and it's not really worth it when you have all these hunters who are better. Next up is Naiad. Naiad is really good in Tai City. She's a very stable Tai hunter. Her water's pretty good. She her hitboxes are pretty good and they're really fast, so she can sometimes get some pretty decent terror shocks because it's really hard to react to a Naiad hitbox. She's just weak to Flywheel, and so she can't win. And also, she has no map pressure, but she has okay Cypher control. So she can very easily tie, she just can't win for the life of her. Breaking Wheel used to be S tier and like really good, but now because of Flywheel, he's stuck in the risky win because they can Flywheel all of his abilities, and that's about it. If the survivors have Flywheel and they Flywheel his Snap, his Full Presence, or whatever, then he loses. Otherwise, if you're really good with him, you can win. And yeah, that's why he is an unstable win. Next up is Wax Artist. Wax Artist is another really good hunter. If he gets kited a long time, he's still a pretty stable Tai hunter. If he gets an early down and then he has pretty decent camp. And if he's able to get the full presence early enough, then he has a pretty decent win condition, which is why he's the best of Tai City hunters. We see him a lot because he's a stable Tai that has a pretty decent win condition sometimes. Next up is Hermit. We'll put him... You're probably better than Anne. Hermit is pretty alright. He's really good on some maps and kind of mediocre on others. He is able to slow Cypher Rush, which is really nice. The problem is that it takes too many hits to down survivors, so even though you're able to really delay Cypher Rush and share damage and all that, it's still gonna take like 4 hits to down someone. And so at that point, you're gonna tie even if you're like the best Hermit in the world. And also, he has no map control or Cypher control, which is why he's just kind of stuck in Tai City. Next up is Clerk. Clerk is also a risky win. If the map or the survivors really counter Clerk, she loses, otherwise she wins. That's about it for Clerk. It's really that simple. If the survivors aren't like literally preparing for a Clerk, it's really easy for Clerk to win. Otherwise, if they are prepared and they have the support and all that, she tends to get bodied. And sure, you can still win as Clerk against them. That's why she's in the risky win and not the unstable win. The problem is that it's really hard. And the thing about the 2 risky wins is that you can make them Tai City hunters. You can absolutely do that, but they can also be win hunters sometimes. If you want to take that risk. And the rest of these hunters don't have that kind of luxury like they do. Next up is Nightwatch. Nightwatch has really, really, really good chase. He just has no map pressure or Cypher control. And so he's just kind of stuck in Tai City because they can just Cypher Rush him. And because survivors can just Cypher Rush him. And there really isn't anything you can do about it. He isn't like these 2 up here, which have some sort of map and Cypher control. Or Wax Artist and Naiad have Cypher control. Or anything like that. And so he's just good. Just could be a lot better. So this is my hunter tier list. I will eventually do one for Survivor. That's going to take me a while though, because doing the hunters alone took a lot. And it took me multiple recordings. And so yeah. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye y'all.